I'm here with Keith Aitken and Gary Mappin, Regional Senior Directors for Scotland. So, Keith, what's been happening in Edinburgh?
From a macro perspective, the Scottish government is very stable, an SNP majority government, which is focused on the growth in certain key areas: energy, tourism and culture, and biosciences. And I'm pleased to say that GVA are very heavily involved in those sectors, particularly in Edinburgh. The market that we operate in Edinburgh is very difficult, very challenging, limited funding, limited occupier demand and fee pressure, which is putting a lot of pressure on our margins and our profit. But Edinburgh has stabilised and in fact has grown in the last year, and we're now up to a level of 50 staff, which was the same as we were before recession hit in 2007.
Okay, and Gary, what's the story in Glasgow?
Well, Glasgow is very much still the broad economic powerhouse of certainly the west of Scotland, probably Scotland as a whole. And there's activity still across all sectors, including even manufacturing. Heavily supported by local government in Glasgow, which has just recently been voted back in on a Labour majority, so keeping the SNP government honest. And there's still activity in major areas, new retail development in the city centre, fairly tight office development pipeline. I think we're going to see some activity in that. And as I say, across the sheer size of the Glasgow metro region, plenty of activity even in the industrial sector.
And Keith, GVA have got a new acquisition.
Yes, we're delighted back in March to welcome RGA Consulting to Edinburgh, a team of 5, 4 down in London, and they're specialist management consultants in the hotel, tourism and culture sector.
And I think the RGA people are going to be heavily involved working with us on projects in Glasgow. We've got the Commonwealth Games coming up in 2014, which is hopefully going to provide a major boost for the city. And off the back of that, we're working to develop our relationships, as we have done in Edinburgh with the City Council, with Glasgow City Council, building on our strengths as a major advisor to the public sector.
Well, let's take a look at some recent highlights. Buchanan Galeries. GVA's planning team advised Land Securities and Henderson Global. Glasgow City Council has now approved the UK's first tax increment finance scheme in the city centre. The planning application, which GVA will advise on, will be submitted later this year. Amazon building in Dunfermline. GVA was appointed to act as the fund monitors for Infrared Capital Partners on the build of the 1 million square foot warehouse in Dunfermline. The project began on site in January 2011 and completed in October 2011 on time and budget. Avaloq Fit Out. GVA's offices team was appointed by the Swiss software solutions company to buy and complete the £1.2 million high-spec fit-out of their new Scottish headquarters at the Tanfield development. GHA appointment. GVA worked for Lowther Homes on the acquisition of £14 million worth of flats from the Park Lane portfolio. Morrisons. GVA acts as principal planning advisors across the entire Morrisons store portfolio in Scotland for stores and petrol stations, as well as site finding and advising on development plan implications. Project Conna. GVA was appointed to advise Lloyds Banking Group and Joint Administrators KPMG across Scotland on this substantial mixed-use development portfolio. So what was the significance of these?
Well, first of all, I think it's fantastic that the team in Scotland's been involved in so many highlights. But specifically, I'd like to pick out 2 occupiers where we've given advice. One, Amazon, the well-known brand, who've got a major distribution depot in Dunfermline. We're not only been involved in the project management of that facility, but also its subsequent sale as an investment. And secondly, Avaloq, a Swiss software solutions firm, came as an inward investor to Scotland and to Edinburgh. And we not only acquired the space in very quick time, but we also project managed their fit-out. So a great collaborative effort between a number of teams there.
And for Glasgow?
Well, we are involved with major occupiers at Morrisons supermarkets who we advise throughout Scotland on planning. But there have been other major deals this year for our Glasgow team, including a major £14 million acquisition for Glasgow Housing Association, Europe's largest social housing provider. And also we've been involved in a very high-profile Buchanan Galeries tax increment financing scheme, which is a leading-edge initiative in Scotland, the first of its kind in the UK.
What about GVA's wider involvement in the industry?
We were involved in some very high-profile research work with the Scottish Government, and we've been at the edge of an initiative championed by Scottish Government on development delivery, looking at the funding of development and viability of it. And we've also been looking at town centres. A major part of our work, particularly on planning and development, has been retail and town centres, and we continue to produce an annual pipeline of new retail development activity in town centres.
And in Edinburgh, I was very fortunate to be represented, or to represent the office, working alongside the City of Edinburgh Council at MIPIM this year. One of a number of our offices who were involved advising their respective cities. That approach of us working with the city is really starting to bear fruit back in Edinburgh.
And what about the staff's involvement in charity work? That goes on a lot, doesn't it?
It does, and despite the fact that the teams are working in difficult market conditions, individually and as a firm, they're doing a lot for charity, and we have an annual participation now in Give and Gain Day, which the two teams took part in recently, and overall we've raised £10,000 for charitable activities this year.
And the abseilers are at it again?
Indeed they are. A couple of years ago a team abseiled down the side of Glasgow's Hilton, and we've recently just abseiled down the iconic Forth Road Bridge. So well done to the team for doing that.
Absolutely. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.